Welcome to the world of daily life stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss new stories. Enjoy listening. The beginning of the journey. The airport was alive with the frenetic energy of travelers. From the rushing businessmen barking into Bluetooth headsets to wide-eyed tourists clutching maps and families laden with colorful luggage, it was a melting pot of humanity. Overhead, announcements droned on, their words blending into the steady hum of movement and chatter. Monica Davis, however, was not your average traveler. She strode through the terminal with purpose, her heels clicking rhythmically against the polished floors. Her navy blue suit, tailored to perfection, and a pearl-white blouse exuded confidence and class. Her short, natural curls framed her face, accentuating the striking intensity in her eyes. She wasn't just heading to a destination, she was walking into an opportunity, a high-stakes corporate negotiation that had the potential to redefine her career. Monica was no stranger to pressure. As a senior executive at one of the country's top consulting firms, she had spent years proving her mettle in an industry that was notoriously unforgiving to women, particularly women of color. But Monica wasn't just surviving, she was thriving. Her resume was stacked with accolades, and her reputation as a shrewd negotiator preceded her. This trip was the culmination of months of planning and preparation. As she approached Gate 27, she glanced at the oversized clock on the wall. She was early, but that was intentional. Monica believed in preparation, whether it was arriving ahead of time, rehearsing key points before a meeting, or even meticulously selecting her attire to project authority. Everything about her was deliberate. The gate area was bustling. Passengers were seated in rows of chairs or standing in clusters, their conversations a mix of excitement and impatience. Monica's eyes flicked to the digital display above the gate. It read, Flight 487, New York to Los Angeles, first class boarding soon. She allowed herself a small, satisfied smile. First-class travel was one of the perks of her position. After years of enduring cramped seats and long layovers, it was a privilege she had earned through sheer determination and hard work. But more than comfort, it symbolized something deeper, a validation of her achievements and a tangible marker of how far she had come. Monica made her way to the boarding line, pulling out her boarding pass. Her carry-on, a sleek leather bag, hung effortlessly on her arm. She could feel the curious eyes of some passengers as she passed. It wasn't the first time she'd sensed it, that unspoken question, what's she doing here? At the head of the line stood a gate agent. Her name tag read Miss Andrews, and her stern expression suggested she had seen her fair share of travelers trying to bend the rules. Her uniform was impeccable, but her demeanor was less welcoming. Monica observed the way Miss Andrews scanned each passenger, her eyes narrowing ever so slightly at some. It wasn't overt, but it was there, a subtle judgment of who belonged in first class and who didn't. When it was Monica's turn, she stepped forward with her signature poise and extended her boarding pass. "Good afternoon," she said, her voice calm and self-assured. Miss Andrews took the boarding pass without meeting her gaze. The agent's eyes darted to the pass and then back to Monica, her expression shifting ever so slightly. Her brow furrowed. "This doesn't look right," Miss Andrews announced, loud enough for those nearby to hear. The air seemed to shift. Conversations hushed, and Monica felt the weight of several pairs of eyes turning in her direction. A man in a business suit, a young couple with matching backpacks, and a mother juggling her toddler, they all paused to glance at her. Monica's heart skipped a beat, but outwardly, she remained composed. She tilted her head slightly, her professional demeanor unshaken. "I assure you, it's valid," she replied, her tone neutral. Miss Andrews frowned and scrutinized the boarding pass again. "This ticket is for first class," she said, as if that explained her skepticism. Her voice carried an edge, one that made it clear she didn't believe Monica belonged there. "Yes," Monica replied evenly. "That's correct." Miss Andrews pursed her lips, then leaned into her microphone. "I need a supervisor at Gate 27 for a ticket verification," she said, her voice echoing across the terminal. Monica's grip tightened on the handle of her bag. She could feel the heat of judgment radiating from the people around her. Some whispered, their voices barely audible over the din of the airport, while others openly stared. A man 2 spots behind her in line muttered, "What's the holdup? Can't they just let her through?" Another voice, a woman's, responded, "Maybe it's a fake ticket. You never know these days." Monica resisted the urge to respond. She had encountered similar moments throughout her life, situations where her accomplishments or mere presence were questioned, where she was made to feel as though she had to prove herself over and over again. Still, this was different. This wasn't a closed-door meeting or a subtle remark at a cocktail party. This was public. It was humiliating. And it was unjust. Moments later, a man in a navy blazer arrived, his badge identifying him as the supervisor. Miss Andrews handed him the boarding pass, explaining the situation in a hushed tone. The supervisor glanced at Monica, his expression unreadable, before turning his attention to the pass. "This ticket is valid," he announced after a brief inspection. "She's clear to board." The silence that followed was almost deafening. Monica could see the surprise on Miss Andrews' face, but the agent quickly masked it with a curt nod. "Apologies for the inconvenience," she said flatly, handing back the boarding pass. "Thank you," Monica replied, her voice calm but firm. She stepped past the gate agent, her head held high. As she entered the jet bridge, Monica felt a swirl of emotions, anger, humiliation, and, above all, resolve. She wasn't just going to let this slide. Not because of her pride, but because it wasn't just about her. It was about every person who had ever been made to feel small, to feel like they didn't belong. Monica Davis had faced challenges before, but this incident had ignited something within her. She wasn't going to let it end here. This was only the beginning of a journey that would leave an indelible mark, not just on her, but on everyone involved. The spark of resolution. The plush first-class cabin greeted Monica with a hushed elegance that sharply contrasted with the chaos outside. Wide leather seats, soft lighting, and the faint aroma of fresh espresso created an atmosphere of exclusivity. Monica settled into her seat by the window, her carry-on tucked neatly beneath her feet. She exhaled slowly, trying to dispel the tension that lingered after her confrontation at the gate. But the encounter with Miss Andrews was not so easily dismissed. Monica's mind replayed the scene, each detail etched into her memory, the agent's condescending tone, the judgmental glances from other passengers, the whispers that seemed to cut through her calm exterior. For a moment, she closed her eyes and pressed her fingers against her temples. She wasn't angry for herself alone, she was furious on behalf of everyone who had ever been doubted, dismissed, or degraded simply because of how they looked. "Excuse me, ma'am, would you like a glass of champagne or orange juice?" The flight attendant's gentle voice interrupted Monica's thoughts. Monica opened her eyes and smiled politely. "Orange juice, please." The flight attendant returned moments later with a crystal glass of fresh juice. Monica sipped it, grateful for the slight reprieve, but her thoughts remained restless. Her phone buzzed on the armrest, and she glanced down at the screen. It was a text from her assistant, Nicole. "Nicole, hope your flight goes smoothly. Remember, you've earned this opportunity. Let me know when you land." Monica allowed herself a small smile. Nicole was more than an assistant, she was a confidant and one of Monica's greatest supporters. She typed a quick reply. "Monica, thank you. We'll update when I arrive." Long story about the gate. As the plane began to taxi, Monica turned her phone to airplane mode and leaned back in her seat. She wasn't just going to let this incident slide. She couldn't. Too many people had sacrificed too much for her to remain silent. Her grandmother's words came back to her, spoken countless times during Monica's childhood, "When you're the first through the door, you hold it open for the next person." Always. 2 days earlier, Monica had been sitting in the sprawling conference room of her firm's headquarters, the New York skyline stretching endlessly through the glass walls. The meeting was intense, a final review of strategy before she flew to Los Angeles for the negotiation of a lifetime. "This client represents the future of our business," Monica's boss, Richard, had said, his tone carrying its usual mix of authority and optimism. "Monica, we're counting on you. The proposal is solid, but what we're really selling is trust. That's your forte." Monica had nodded, her mind already ticking through the details of the presentation. She was used to high-pressure situations, but this deal was special. It wasn't just about landing a major client, it was about setting a precedent for the firm's expansion into new markets. Her performance in Los Angeles would determine whether the company succeeded or failed in this endeavor. "You've got this," Nicole had said later that day, handing Monica a neatly packed folder with all the necessary documents. "You've worked harder than anyone else in this building. If they can't see that, they're blind." Monica had laughed. "Thanks, Nicole. I'll need all the good vibes I can get." Back on the plane. The flight was uneventful, but Monica's mind remained preoccupied. As the plane touched down in Los Angeles, she resolved to act. Her first instinct was to let the airline's management know about her experience at the gate. But the more she thought about it, the more she realized that this wasn't just about one rude gate agent. It was about a culture, a system, that allowed such behavior to persist. By the time she checked into her hotel, Monica had drafted a formal letter on her laptop, detailing the incident with Miss Andrews. She described the humiliation she had felt, the implicit bias that had been on full display, and the systemic issues such behavior reflected. But as she read over the letter, she realized it wasn't enough. Sending it to the airline would feel like venting into the void. Instead, Monica decided to leverage her network. She reached out to a contact at a prominent news outlet, a journalist known for her investigative work on social justice issues. Monica explained the incident, framing it within the broader context of bias in corporate spaces and public services. The journalist was intrigued. "This is more common than people think," the journalist said during their phone call. "If you're willing to share your story publicly, it could start a conversation." Monica hesitated. She wasn't someone who sought the spotlight. But this wasn't about her, it was about change. "Let's do it," she said finally. The meeting that changed everything. The next morning, Monica walked into the sleek conference room of a downtown Los Angeles high-rise. She was greeted by a team of executives, each one impeccably dressed and radiating authority. But Monica wasn't intimidated. She had prepared meticulously, and her confidence was unshakable. For the next 2 hours, she delivered a flawless presentation, answering questions with precision and addressing concerns with empathy. By the end of the meeting, the CEO stood up and extended his hand. "Monica, you've convinced us," he said with a smile. "We look forward to working with your firm." As Monica exited the building, her phone buzzed with a notification. The journalist had published an article titled, "Bias at 30,000 feet, a first-class passenger's fight for dignity." It was accompanied by a photo of Monica, taken during their interview. The story had gone viral within hours. Backlash and support. By the time Monica returned to her hotel room, her phone was flooded with messages. Some were from friends and colleagues expressing their support. Others were from strangers sharing their own stories of discrimination and injustice. But not all the messages were positive. A handful of comments accused her of overreacting or playing the victim. Monica read each message carefully, her resolve only hardening. She had anticipated backlash. Change was never easy, and it often came at a cost. But for every negative comment, there were 10 messages of gratitude, people thanking her for speaking out, for giving a voice to their experiences. The airline's response. Within days, the airline released a public statement. They apologized to Monica directly and announced a company-wide initiative to address implicit bias among their staff. Miss Andrews, the gate agent, was placed on leave pending an investigation. But Monica wasn't done. She used the momentum of her story to partner with organizations that focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Together, they launched a campaign to promote fairness in public spaces, from airports to boardrooms. Closing reflection. Sitting in her office weeks later, Monica reflected on the journey that had begun at Gate 27. What had started as a humiliating moment had transformed into a movement. Monica had learned that sometimes, the moments meant to break you could instead become the foundation of something greater. She glanced at the framed quote on her desk, a gift from Nicole: "When you're the first through the door, you hold it open for the next person." Always. Monica smiled. Her grandmother would be proud. The ripple effect. The following weeks unfolded like a whirlwind, with Monica unexpectedly thrust into the public eye. What had started as a single moment of indignity at the airport was now a story being discussed on news outlets, podcasts, and social media platforms. People resonated with Monica's experience, not because it was unique, but because it was a mirror of what so many had endured in silence. Sitting in her New York office, Monica scrolled through an article titled, "Bias in the Skies: One Executive's Stand Against Discrimination." The journalist who had written the original piece had followed up with an investigative deep dive, uncovering patterns of systemic bias in the airline industry. The article highlighted numerous accounts from passengers of different racial, ethnic, and socioeconomic backgrounds who had faced similar experiences. One woman, a doctor of South Asian descent, recounted being accused of not understanding English, despite being fluent and providing the correct boarding documentation. Another man, an artist from the Caribbean, described being questioned for occupying a premium seat he had paid for in full. The floodgates had opened, and stories were pouring in from all corners of the globe. Monica placed her phone down and stared out the window. She hadn't anticipated becoming the face of a movement, but it was clear that her decision to speak out had struck a chord. The airline's initial apology had been insufficient for the broader public, prompting them to announce a series of sweeping reforms. But Monica was skeptical. Public relations statements were easy to make, real change was harder. Her assistant Nicole knocked softly on the door before stepping in. "Monica, you've got a meeting with the Diversity Task Force in 20 minutes, she said, setting a fresh cup of coffee on Monica's desk. "And you've been invited to speak at a panel next week, Bias in Corporate Spaces. They specifically requested you." Monica sighed and gave Nicole a grateful smile. "Thank you, Nicole. Have I mentioned lately that I couldn't do any of this without you?" Nicole grinned. "You could, but it wouldn't be as fun." Behind the curtain, inside the airline. Meanwhile, at the headquarters of the airline, tensions were high. The CEO, Michael Pearson, was facing mounting pressure from the board of directors and shareholders. The company's stock had taken a hit after the story went viral, and customers were demanding accountability. Pearson had convened an emergency meeting with the senior leadership team. Around the table sat the airline's top executives, each one looking visibly uncomfortable. "This situation has spiraled out of control," Pearson began, his voice tight. "Our response wasn't strong enough, and now we're paying the price. We need more than an apology, we need action." The chief operating officer cleared her throat. "We've launched an internal review of all customer-facing staff. Training programs are being revised to include modules on unconscious bias and cultural competency. But it'll take time to implement." "That's not good enough," Pearson snapped. "We need immediate solutions." "Have we reached out to Ms. Davis directly? She's clearly a key figure in this narrative." The chief communications officer nodded. "We've extended an invitation for her to participate in a roundtable discussion with our leadership. It's a gesture of good faith." Pearson leaned back in his chair, his expression grim. "Good faith won't fix this. We need her cooperation. If she continues to speak out against us, this could escalate further." Monica's new mission. Monica received the airline's invitation the following day. The email was formal and conciliatory, requesting her participation in a roundtable discussion to help shape their new diversity initiatives. Monica read it twice, her emotions a mix of skepticism and intrigue. She forwarded the email to Nicole with a note, "Thoughts? Is this genuine, or just damage control?" Minutes later, Nicole walked into her office. "It's both," she said, handing Monica a printout of the airline's press release. They're scrambling, but this is a chance for you to influence real change. If you approach this strategically, you could hold them accountable. Monica considered Nicole's words carefully. She had no intention of being a token participant in a performative exercise. If she engaged, it would be on her terms. The round table. 2 weeks later, Monica found herself in a sleek conference room at the airline's headquarters. The room was filled with executives, legal advisors, and consultants. Pearson greeted her personally, his handshake firm but his expression guarded. "Ms. Davis, thank you for joining us," he said. "We're eager to hear your perspective." Monica nodded. "I appreciate the invitation, but let me be clear, I'm here to ensure that this isn't just a box-ticking exercise. This is an opportunity for the airline to lead by example, but it requires genuine commitment." For the next 3 hours, Monica spoke candidly about her experience and the systemic issues it represented. She challenged their policies, pointed out gaps in their proposed solutions, and emphasized the importance of accountability. One of the executives bristled at her directness. "We've already committed significant resources to address these concerns," he said defensively. "Change doesn't happen overnight." Monica met his gaze calmly. "You're right, change doesn't happen overnight. But it doesn't happen at all without urgency and intention. The longer you delay, the more you reinforce the status quo." By the end of the meeting, Pearson looked visibly humbled. "Ms. Davis, your insights have been invaluable. We'll be incorporating your recommendations into our plan." Monica wasn't convinced yet. "Actions speak louder than words," she said. "I'll be watching closely." Seeds of transformation. Over the next few months, Monica saw her efforts bear fruit. The airline introduced a transparent reporting system for passenger grievances, with a dedicated team to address bias-related incidents. They partnered with independent experts to audit their hiring and training practices, ensuring that diversity was reflected at all levels of the organization. But Monica's impact didn't stop there. She became a sought-after speaker on the topic of systemic bias, sharing her story at conferences, universities, and corporate events. She also launched an initiative within her own firm to mentor young professionals from underrepresented backgrounds, providing them with the tools and support she had often lacked early in her career. One day, while preparing for yet another speaking engagement, Monica received an email from a young woman named Ayana. The subject line read, "Thank you." Ayana wrote about how Monica's story had inspired her to confront the bias she faced as a law student. "Your courage gave me the strength to stand up for myself," Ayana wrote. "You showed me that it's possible to challenge the system and win." Monica's eyes filled with tears as she read the email. She had set out to hold a gate agent accountable for her actions, but in doing so, she had become part of something much larger. Reflection. Late one evening, Monica sat in her apartment, flipping through the pages of a journal she had started during the ordeal. She paused at an entry from the day after the airport incident. "Today, I was made to feel small. But I won't stay small. I'll take this moment and turn it into something meaningful, not just for me, but for everyone who's ever felt the same." Monica closed the journal with a sense of quiet pride. The journey wasn't over, but she had proven something important, not just to herself, but to the world. The power of collaboration. Months had passed since Monica's confrontation at the airport, and the ripple effects of her actions were still unfolding. What had initially felt like a personal battle had evolved into a widespread movement, fueled by stories, momentum, and a collective demand for change. Monica was no longer just a corporate executive or an outspoken advocate, she had become a symbol of resilience and transformation. Despite her growing public presence, Monica remained grounded in her mission. She had partnered with multiple organizations to launch the Equality in Every Space initiative, aimed at combating systemic bias in public and corporate environments. The initiative had gained traction, drawing support from influential figures, grassroots organizers, and everyday people who wanted to make a difference. But Monica knew that change required more than words and promises. It required tangible, measurable actions. And for that, she needed allies. A new kind of partnership. One afternoon, Monica was reviewing a proposal in her office when Nicole walked in, a thoughtful expression on her face. She placed a folder on Monica's desk. "You need to see this." Monica raised an eyebrow, flipping open the folder. Inside was a detailed proposal from an emerging tech company specializing in artificial intelligence. The company, Equal Lens, was developing tools to track and mitigate bias in hiring, customer interactions, and service delivery. "They reached out after hearing about your work," Nicole explained. "They want to partner with equality in every space. Their software could take what we're doing to the next level." Monica scanned the document, her interest piqued. Equal Lens had outlined a system that could analyze data, flag patterns of discrimination, and provide actionable insights. It wasn't just a band-aid solution, it was a proactive tool that could transform industries. "This could be a game-changer," Monica said, her voice tinged with excitement. "Set up a meeting with their leadership team." The Equal Lens meeting. A week later, Monica found herself in the sleek offices of Equal Lens. The space was modern, with glass walls, minimalist furniture, and an open layout that buzzed with creativity. She was greeted by the company's co-founders, Amir and Jessica, who radiated a sense of passion and purpose. After the initial introductions, Amir launched into a presentation. "Our mission is simple," he said, gesturing to a screen displaying dynamic graphics. "We believe technology can be a force for equity. Our software identifies biases in real time, whether it's a hiring process, customer interaction, or resource allocation, and provides solutions to address them." Jessica added, "Imagine this being implemented in airports, for example. A system that ensures passengers are treated equally, regardless of their background, appearance, or ticket type." Monica nodded, impressed. "This aligns perfectly with what we're trying to achieve. But how do we ensure this doesn't just become another tool that companies adopt for optics?" Amir smiled. "Accountability is built into the system. The data is transparent and can be shared with stakeholders, advocacy groups, and even the public. It's not about hiding bias, it's about confronting it head-on." The meeting ended with a handshake and a commitment to collaborate. Monica felt a renewed sense of purpose. The partnership with Equal Lens wasn't just about technology, it was about creating a legacy. The first pilot program. Monica and the Equal Lens team decided to pilot the software at a major international airport, partnering with the airline that had been at the center of Monica's initial confrontation. The irony wasn't lost on her, but she saw it as an opportunity for redemption, both for the airline and for herself. The implementation process was rigorous. Equal Lens software was integrated into the airport's customer service systems, analyzing interactions between staff and passengers. Monica also worked closely with the airline's leadership to ensure that the staff received comprehensive training on how to interpret and act on the data. At first, there was resistance. Some employees were skeptical, fearing that the system would be used to punish rather than improve. Monica addressed their concerns during a town hall meeting. "This isn't about blame," she said, standing before a room of airline staff. "It's about growth. We all have biases, many of them unconscious. This tool is here to help us see what we can't and to create a better experience for everyone." Her words seemed to resonate. Gradually, the skepticism gave way to curiosity and, eventually, acceptance. Results that speak. 3 months into the pilot program, the results were undeniable. Instances of passenger complaints had decreased by 40%, and employee satisfaction surveys showed a marked improvement in morale. The software had uncovered subtle patterns of bias, such as certain gate agents being more likely to question passengers of color, and provided actionable insights to address them. Monica and the Equal Lens team presented the findings at a press conference. The room was packed with journalists, industry leaders, and advocates. Monica stood at the podium, her voice steady and confident. "This pilot program has shown us what's possible when we confront bias with transparency and innovation," she said. "It's not just about fixing what's broken, it's about building something better." Her words were met with applause, but what mattered most to Monica was the ripple effect. Several other airlines and airports expressed interest in adopting the technology, and Equal received funding to expand its operations. A personal revelation. As the initiative gained momentum, Monica found herself reflecting on her journey. One evening, while reviewing a stack of emails from people thanking her for her work, she came across a message from Miss Andrews, the gate agent who had challenged her at the airport. The email was brief but heartfelt. "Ms. Davis, I wanted to apologize for my behavior that day. I realize now how much harm I caused, and I'm committed to doing better. Your story has inspired me to confront my own biases and to treat every passenger with dignity and respect. Thank you for holding me accountable." Monica stared at the screen, a mix of emotions washing over her. She had often wondered about Miss Andrews, whether she had reflected on that day, whether she had changed. This email was proof that people could grow if given the chance. She replied, "Thank you for your message. Accountability and growth are what this journey is all about. I wish you the best as you continue to learn and evolve. A movement, not a moment." By the end of the year, Monica's work had expanded far beyond the airline industry. The Equality in Every Space initiative had partnered with schools, corporations, and public institutions, spreading its message of inclusion and fairness. Equal had become a household name, its tools reshaping industries. Sitting in her office one evening, Monica looked at a map on her wall, dotted with pins marking every city where the initiative had made an impact. She thought about how it all began, with a single moment of humiliation at an airport gate. That moment could have broken her. Instead, it became the spark that ignited a movement. A legacy of change. 1 year after the confrontation at Gate 27, Monica Davis stood on the stage of a grand auditorium in Washington, D.C. The room was packed with leaders from various industries, advocates, students, and members of the public who had been inspired by her work. A large screen behind her displayed the words, "Equality in Every Space, Building a World Without Barriers." The event marked the first anniversary of the Equality in Every Space initiative, and Monica had been invited to deliver the keynote speech. The atmosphere was electric, a testament to the impact she had made in such a short time. Monica adjusted the microphone and scanned the crowd. Her heart swelled with a mix of pride and gratitude as she began to speak. The speech. "When I walked into this room today, I was reminded of the moment my journey began," she started, her voice steady and warm. "A moment that was meant to diminish me, but instead became the foundation for something far greater. That moment wasn't unique to me, it was a reflection of what so many people face every day. And that's why we're here." She paused, letting her words sink in. The audience hung on every syllable. "A year ago, I stood at an airport gate holding a first-class ticket and was told, indirectly but clearly, that I didn't belong. That moment hurt. But more than that, it awakened something in me. It reminded me that the systems we navigate are not just flawed, they're often built on foundations that exclude and diminish." Monica stepped away from the podium, walking slowly across the stage as she continued. "What followed was not just my story. It became our story. People from all walks of life began sharing their experiences, their struggles, and their hopes. Together, we turned pain into progress." The screen behind her shifted to display data from the initiative, hundreds of organizations adopting bias mitigation tools, thousands of employees trained, and millions of passengers impacted by the changes in the airline industry. But Monica didn't linger on the numbers. "This isn't just about metrics," she said, her voice growing more impassioned. "It's about humanity. It's about creating spaces where everyone feels seen, valued, and respected." She finished her speech with a call to action. The work is far from over. Change isn't a destination, it's a journey. And every single one of us has a role to play in that journey. Let's not wait for the next moment of injustice to act. Let's build a world where those moments become the exception, not the rule. The audience erupted into applause, many rising to their feet. Monica felt a wave of emotion as she stepped back to the podium, nodding her gratitude. But the most meaningful part of the event was yet to come. Personal stories. After her speech, the auditorium transitioned into a panel discussion. Monica was joined by a diverse group of leaders, Amir and Jessica from Equal Lens, an educator who had implemented bias mitigation training in schools, and a young entrepreneur who had created a platform to amplify marginalized voices in media. Each panelist shared their journey, but what moved Monica most were the stories from the audience during the Q&A session. A young black pilot stood up, his voice trembling with emotion. "Ms. Davis, I just want to thank you," he said. "Your story gave me the courage to speak up at my airline about the microaggressions I faced every day. They've started to make changes, and I know it wouldn't have happened without you paving the way." Another woman, a single mother of 3, shared how the Equality in Every Space initiative had inspired her local community to demand better training for public service employees. "We're seeing progress," she said, tears streaming down her face. "And it's because you showed us it's possible." Monica listened intently, her heart swelling with gratitude and determination. Each story reaffirmed why she had chosen to act and why she would continue to fight for change. A moment of reflection. After the event, Monica retreated to a quiet corner of the venue. She needed a moment to process everything, the stories, the gratitude, the sheer magnitude of what had unfolded over the past year. She thought about the people who had supported her along the way, Nicole, who had been her rock through it all, Amir and Jessica, whose innovative minds had brought her vision to life, and even the gate agent, Miss Andrews, whose message of apology had reminded Monica of the power of accountability and growth. As Monica sipped her water, a familiar face approached her. It was Richard, her boss from the consulting firm, who had flown in to attend the event. "You've built something extraordinary, Monica," he said, his voice full of admiration. "I always knew you were a force to be reckoned with, but this? This is on another level." Monica smiled. "Thank you, Richard. It hasn't been easy, but it's been worth it." Richard leaned in slightly. "You've become more than an executive, you've become a leader in the truest sense of the word. I hope you realize how many lives you've changed." Monica nodded, her thoughts drifting to her grandmother's words, "When you're the first through the door, you hold it open for the next person." Always. A global initiative. Over the next year, Monica's work expanded globally. The Equality in Every Space initiative partnered with international organizations to address bias in sectors ranging from healthcare to education. Equal Lens developed a suite of tools tailored for global markets, ensuring that cultural nuances were respected while promoting fairness. Monica traveled extensively, meeting with leaders, advocates, and everyday citizens. She learned as much as she taught, understanding that the fight for equality was both universal and deeply personal. The award. 2 years after the incident at Gate 27, Monica stood on another stage, this time at a prestigious awards ceremony. She was being honored with the Global Leadership Award for Social Equity, a recognition of her impact across industries and borders. As she accepted the award, Monica looked out at the audience, a sea of faces representing the diversity she had fought for. She spoke briefly, but powerfully. "This award is not just for me," she said. "It's for every person who has ever felt unseen, unheard, or unworthy. It's a reminder that change is possible, and it begins with each of us choosing to act." A legacy built on courage. Monica's story became a case study taught in business schools, a movement that inspired legislation, and a beacon of hope for countless individuals. But for Monica, her greatest accomplishment was knowing that she had honored her grandmother's legacy by holding the door open for others. One evening, as she sat in her home office, Monica glanced at a framed photo on her desk. It was from the airport press conference, taken shortly after the pilot program's success. She was surrounded by people, executives, advocates, and passengers, smiling and united. Below the photo was an engraved plaque, "What begins as a moment can become a movement. Thank you for being the spark." Monica smiled. The journey was far from over, but she was ready for whatever came next.